For Danny, he's been playing Grixis Control for some time.
Yeah, so Danny Jessup on Grixis Control, that's not too much surprise. He's really a veteran with the deck. Alex Bastecki, really unknown in the field. We weren't sure what he'd be playing. Did go with Naya Company. Now, if you're not familiar with this deck, he's actually playing the exact 75 that got second place at GP Porto Alegre about a month ago. So that's where he's gotten the list from. And it actually had a very good tournament there. And by really, as we start to see these lower-end aggro decks, or sometimes, Jundish style decks, Naya has had a resurgence, and that's why we see Alex up a game here.
And you see that both of these players are in the play-to-stay group here, so it is important for them to get their winning on track right now because they could be eliminated from the tournament as they make their way through pod play at this point. So for Bastecki, he has a Voice of Resurgence, a couple of lands on the battlefield. For Jessup, he has a Jace Vryn's Prodigy that has been transformed into a Jace Telepath Unbound with 7 loyalty counters on it. It also has a Tassiger out there, though for Jessup, he is down a game currently.
Yeah, so the advantage for Naya Company here, or where it hopes to go to, is that against control decks, basically, I guess, your Terminate style decks, it plays a lot of cards and creatures that are very resilient to this. So maybe a Collected Company to get 2 creatures. I mean, you see Voice of Resurgence here. This card is excellent against Snapcaster Terminate decks.
Bastecki will play a copy of Path to Exile. Going to get Tasker off the battlefield, and it appears that will work. So Jessup will get to search up a basic. And it appears he does have a basic left in his deck, though he does have 2 on the battlefield right now in Swamp and Island. And he'll get another Island.
Yeah, so the deck, Naya Company, its creature base is kind of what you'd expect, I guess, out of green-white decks. So we have Knight of the Reliquary, Luxodon Smiter, Scavenging Ooze, Voice of Resurgence, Tarmogoyf, Wild Nacatl, and large numbers of all of them.
What comes next here for Alex? Looks like he'll play a Ghost Quarter as his land. The Expedition out there is a stomping ground.
Yeah, so short on white. He's not going to be able to go for Knight of the Reliquary or Smiter just yet. I believe he has both in hand.
He felt like Path to Exile was much more important. Get that Tasker off the battlefield, and now Bastecki will simply pass the turn back over to Jessup, who again does have that active chase. A few cards in hand as well here for Danny.
Wild Nacatl's in Alex's hand. Opted not to play it, so we'll see what he's representing here. The deck does play some instance. So we have Lightning Bolt, Path to Exile, Jarmoka's Command, and Collected Company are all within the range of the deck. Now we're post-board, so I'm not sure how many of them are in at the moment.
Snapcaster Mage here from Danny. And Voice of Resurgence just forcing him to play in some strange ways here as he will flash back Lightning Bolt to go after the Voice.
Keep in mind, if he had gone... This is a heads-up play by Danny. If he had gone for Kolaghan's Command, dealing 2 and having Alex discarded, a Luxodon Smiter would have hit the table just there.
And that would have been bad news, of course. Now, there is an Elemental token because the Voice is going to die. And now Jace will tick up to slow down that Elemental token. And now we will head back Bastecki's way. Kessig Wolf run the draw.
Yeah, a lot of these, really just Naya mid-rangey cards. Stuff like Kessig Wolf Run. Not the most efficient card in Modern, but it's just big enough that the control decks are not well suited to answer them at the moment.
A Smiter. Couple copies of Wild Nacatl. Knight of the Reliquary in the grip as well. Again for Bastecki, currently up a game right now. And so cast a Wild Nacatl.
We'll see which 3-drop he wants to go to. At this point, it's pretty clear that Danny's going to play around Luxodon Smiter. If he didn't go for the Kolaghan's Command last turn.
Next up is Knight of the Reliquary.
Does have some land cards in the graveyard. Also, if need be, he can always Ghost Quarter something.
Yep, make it even larger.
He'll probably take some sort of black kill spell to get rid of Knight of the Reliquary.
There's no shortage of very large threats from this Naya Company deck. See, Jessup's going to sacrifice a Polluted Delta here. It looks like Bastecki's starting to get his feet underneath him a little bit in this particular game.
Right, that's where Naya Company looks so good as in this matchup. You look at Danny's removal, Lightning Bolts, Kolaghan's Commands. They're good Magic cards, and especially in, you play them against Affinity, they'll be excellent. But there's issues here where, first of all, sometimes they're not enough damage to kill Alex's creatures. Then if he does use them, sometimes Smiters will happen. There's just a lot of ways this can go wrong or match up poorly. He is a control deck that is not set up to deal with these threats.
We're going to head back to Danny Jessup's way. 6 lands on the battlefield. A Jace on 8 and a Snapcaster Mages will take a draw step. A Lightning Bolt the draw.
And this is a great setup for Danny late game. An active Jace, a Snapcaster, and Lightning Bolt in hand. I mean, in most situations, you'd look at this and say, this is where I want to be with my Grixis control deck. But it is not clear that he can win from this spot.
Well, the thing about Bastecki's deck is that he's just going to continue to present difficult-to-answer threats. Collected Company might find 2 at a time. And now the Reliquary is the kind of card that it demands an answer right away.
Yeah, and he can't. It's not that Danny can even chump block for his Planeswalker if he wanted to. Casting Wolf Run would put a stop to that.
Polluted Delta is the land here for Jessup. And it looks like we've got a Lightning Bolt on the way in just a moment. Just got to figure out where it's going to go. Got quite a few choices out there. The Nikado is a 3/3. Now the Reliquary is a little bit bigger.
So there's a problem. If he bolts and Snapcast bolts this, it's not actually going to kill the Knight of the Reliquary as long as Alex is willing to Ghost Quarter one of his own lands. There are 2 lands in the graveyard currently, so a Ghost Quarter on his own land will put 2. I guess maybe that would be just enough if there's only 2.
Yeah, if there's 2 in the graveyard right now, there are 4. It's a 4/4. Ghost Quarter will target your own land, make it into a 6/6. So it just depends on how many lands are in the graveyard here. Yeah, and it's currently a 4/4.
Okay, so he can get it, but it'll take everything.
It looks like Jace is going to tick down to allow Jessup to recast a Lightning Bolt.
Yeah. It's going to have to be the Lightning Bolt, though. Once again, can't go for Kolaghan's Command, but as we've seen, he hasn't really chosen to go for that card yet.
So here is Lightning Bolt, and looking to finish off the night.
That should work through whatever disruption through the lands that Alex has. But that still, to me, feels like, it's not a loss for Alex. That was a lot of resources from Danny.
If I'm Alex, I'm okay with that because here's the thing. He has to use a lot of resources to get rid of it, and if you don't, the Knight gets to run rampant on the game.
If Alex untaps, it's probably never dying.
To Bastecki will go. Right now, 2/2 elemental token there from Voice of Resurgence, along with a 3/3 Wild Nikado.
It's like Smiter and a pair of lands on Alex's side.
Forest will be the land that he does play. It does make you wonder if he's going to maybe give up on the dream of Loxodon on Smiter being free.
Yeah, I'm not certain that he needs to go for that anymore.
Just a 3-mana 4/4 that's uncounterable might be more than enough in this stage.
Now, there's a bit, He can play Smiter and have enough mana left over to activate Kessig Wolf Run for Trample. There's some incentive for doing that. If he plays Smiter pre-combat, that voice token would be a 3/3, not a 2/2, and it would not be allowed to trade with Snapcaster Mage.
Looks like Nikado's going to go to Jace, and the elemental token will go to Danny Jessup. And I think Bastecki is setting up maybe a little Wolf Run activation on the Nikado. Doesn't believe that Jessup has an answer to the 3/3.
Yeah, he does. That Expedition at the top is a stomping ground, so he can Wolf Run from anywhere from 0 to 3. Even if you do it for 0, the creature gets Trample. Mm-hmm. So that should disincentivize any blocks from Danny, or at least on the Nikado.
What makes this attack pretty difficult too is that if you're Danny, you might have some interest in maybe jumping in front of the elemental token, but then Eclectic Company flies out of nowhere, makes the creature into a 3/3 or a 4/4, and then all of a sudden, not the best blocks in the world. It looks like Snapcaster Mage is going to jump in front of Wild Nikado.
So now it's a game of chicken here. Is Alex willing to put all the mana into the Wild Nikado? If he does, he'll get Snapcaster and the Jace. If Danny has a Lightning Bolt, well, then he'll get Time Walked for it.
Well, he's making his move. Nikado's going to be targeted there by Kessig Wolf Run.
6/3 Trample. This is beautiful.
So down goes Jace.
Big call there from, wow.
Yeah. It's a huge play. It's a tough play to make because if he has Lightning Bolt, you get Time Walked into the ground there.
Yeah. Danny has some recovery. I think he can Snapcast back this Kolaghan's Command on the end step, maybe rebuy his Jace and start over.
Yeah, I mean, there are some positives here if you're Danny. You're going to get a Steam Vents. Take 2 to do that. Snapcaster Mage, you mentioned the Kolaghan's command. Get back your Jace, deal 2 to the Nikotl. That'll kill the Nikotl since it has 2 damage on it. Then the following 2 will finish it off. And then that Voice of Resurgence Elemental token becomes a little bit smaller. So it's not over yet by any means. It was just a really good turn there for Alex. And it looks like we're going to see this Kolaghan command be flashback.
Yeah, I like him rebuying Snapcaster Mage over rebuying Jace, mainly because Kessig Wolfrun makes it impossible for him to protect the Jace. So you don't really want to play Jace on a board that it's just going to die. Jace represents maybe, you know, down the road 2 or 3 flashbacks, but 1 will just have to do.
So back to Bastecki we'll go. Still has that Lockstone Smiter in his hand. There's a Noble Hierarch.
Yeah, I mean, he left the Snapcaster back to hopefully block Voice of Resurgence, but that is very hopeful thinking on his part. And I know Alex continues to hold on to the Smiter. I think we've seen multiple times that Danny is not going to let Alex cheat the Smiter into play. So at some point here, I do think Alex just wants to play the Smiter. It will pump his Elemental token.
I like playing it now. So the thought process here, and maybe I play pre-combat, maybe I don't. The thought process is, okay, I can bluff Kessig Wolfrun activation.
Well, you actually, if he played his land, he could have his cake and eat it too.
That's very true.
Yeah, you can just red, green, 0, activate Kessig Wolfrun just to give your guy trample. It's fine.
Engineered Explosives was the draw here for Jessup, but you see the varying mana cost here for Bastecki. Noble Hierarch a 1, the Elemental token a 0, and now the freshly cast Smiter a 3. So Engineered Explosives not going to get a ton of work done here, but it will solve the problem of the Smiter, as it looks like Jessup's going to play it for 3.
And that'll work, but Kessig Wolfrun is still going to take over this game. It's what Kessig Wolfrun does for Alex is it means that Alex cannot flood out.
And this is the power of having creature lands in your deck if you're a Jund or an Abzan deck, and this is the power of having utility lands in your deck if you're this Naya Company deck. All right, I'm drawing lands. Well, that's fine. That's just more to dump into Kessig Wolfrun. At least you always have something to do.
So we'll see how Alex wants to play this. With Jessup at 9, he's got a lot of options available.
Looks like he's going to attack just with the Elemental token. Again, right now, that's a 3-power creature. You throw in the Exalted trigger and makes it into a 4-power creature. And we haven't even worked Wolfrun into the equation just yet.
Could put it all the way to 7 if he dumps all his mana into it. Naya Company flexing its muscles here against Grixis control.
Yeah, it's weird because you think of Grixis Control as this super grindy value deck, and it certainly is. You've got Snapcaster Mage, Kolaghan's Command, Jace Vryn's Prodigy, and everything else that goes into this type of deck. But Naya Company has a way of being able to go long with decks like this, thanks to Eclectic Company, Wolfrun, stuff like that.
I feel like if Danny wanted to shore up this matchup, he'd have to start having things like Cruel Ultimatum at the top of his curve or just really big haymakers. But in the absence of them, you're right. I mean, he's the control deck, but his late game cards don't match up against Alex's.
Bastecki going to tap some mana here. Maybe Eclectic Company on the way? Maybe just a large Wolfrun activation. And it looks like it will be a Wolfrun activation.
Looks like activating for 2.
Yep.
That will make it into a 6/4.
So it looks like Engineered Explosives is going to be activated, blow up the Smiter, which will make that Elemental token a little bit smaller.
So yeah, it should just be 5 now.
But also it'll lose a point of toughness as well. But because of the Exalted trigger, it'll still be alive. So now we pass the turn back over to Jessup as Tarmogoyf comes down now. Another land the draw here. And all you can do is pass the turn back. Bastecki going to very quickly untap and draw.
Oh, wow. I believe he hit a Collected Company for the turn. And yeah, just the resource advantage game just solidly in Naya Company's favor.
That Tarmogoyf, they're checking the size on that. Want to make sure it's right. Alex being a judge and all, I'm sure it's not his first time having to do this. He'll play that Wooded Foothills. And you mentioned the Collected Company. That was the draw. And now we see a shoulder shrug and just an attack here.
We need to get fancy with something like Exalted. Might as well just play 2 creatures and trample the one that Danny blocks.
Yep. force him to have it, whatever it is.
Yeah, I mean, he can even do something cheeky as give Tarmogoyf trample. Nothing. Then end turn, collected company.
Yeah, he's in a great spot. For Bastecki, he's going to activate Kessig Wolf Run, give trample onto the Tarmogoyf. Danny will show 2 lands on the Snapcaster Mage, and that's going to do it. Alex Bastecki is going to win this match here over Danny Jessup, 2-0. Naya Company going to take care of Grixis Control. And for Bastecki, who had a tough run through the legacy portion of things, went 0-3 there. He's on the board here in Modern with Naya Company.
Yeah, it's his first win of the tournament, so congratulations to Alex. Maybe a format change was just what he needed. Remember, as long as he's able to end up in the top of one of the 2 groups, that should be good enough to make it to tomorrow.